Yeah, welcome back to the Survive Scale Soar Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy. Just a quick reminder, this show comes in two formats: real talk, just me and the mic sharing what's going on in the world and how that could have an impact on your business. And then there's success talks. That's where I get to interview some of the people that are at the highest level in their respective field, and they share with you what has made them successful. They'll also share with you the challenges that they've faced along the way. Yeah, today's going to be a little bit different. I get a lot of questions asking Jeremy, well, tell us about your journey. And I'd love to tell it, but I'd like to be interviewed about it because, I have my own set story that I'd like to share with you. And sometimes, I might not reveal all the pieces, and I want to be able to do that for you today. And so I've brought on John Altic. You heard him last week. He's the broker owner of JLA Realty. John's going to be interviewing me today. So I'm going to turn it over to you, John. John, welcome to the show again.
Thank you. This is exciting. I love being on the other side of this, where I get to interview you. That's
I'm a little scared. I have to say I don't know what's coming.
Talk about role reversal here. Before I dive into this, I want your listeners to know, I've known Jeremy since I got into the real estate business in 2007. He was already established then. We've been compadres in this business for a long time. And it's been fun to watch him do what he's done. And I think it's a real testament to who people are and what we're all capable of. So let's dive into Jeremy. Let's ask him some questions and let's see what we can learn from it. So you guys all know Jeremy, you listen to his podcast, right? He's been doing real estate in some form or fashion since 2004. He's got this, he's a published author with Survive Scale Soar. He also has obviously built this huge coaching business. So let's find out how he got here. So Jeremy, when I met you, you were a realtor. Then you became a kind of a trainer and a recruiter within the company you were with. And that's where we were going head to head at that time. So tell me a little bit about your progression from beginning newbie realtor. What did you do before real estate? How did you get into real estate? And then tell me how that progression looked.
I was one of those guys that just kind of jumped off the cliff. I had $5,000 to my name. I was married at the time, and I had this crazy idea that I was going to go do real estate. How that came about was from my realtor. The realtor that helped me, his name was Earl Hell, helped me buy my first home, my wife and I. And in passing, Earl said, "Hey, you would make a great realtor." And so I heard that. And I was like, I've never really had anybody say something like that to me. I'm going to go become a realtor. And at the time I was working at the Lake Houston YMCA. I'd taken that as a job. I'd done an internship through college at A&M. I got to the YMCA, did that for a couple of years. And, I think it was just timing. God works in mysterious ways and puts people in your life for a certain reason. And that was Earl Hell at the time. And 6 months later, I was a realtor. I didn't know what I was doing. First day on the job, I got a listing. 2 weeks later, I sold it to the neighbor across the street. And I was like, man, this is going to be easy. It took another 6 months. Yeah. Took another 6 months. And before I had my next sale, and I realized that, okay, I've got to learn how to be a business owner. Now, I grew up in a house of entrepreneurs. My dad was a master plumber, owned his own business. My grandparents owned an antique shop in Wimberley, Texas. And so everybody that I was around in family had always built their own business. So I had the experience. I knew it wasn't going to be as easy as I thought it was because I'd been through tough times.
Right.
And so that's how I got my start, though. It was a simple conversation. And next thing you know, licensed.
What I like about that is that sometimes we have a hard time looking in the mirror and figuring out where we want to go, but we don't want to listen to the people around us. And what I like about that is you listen to somebody that saw something in you that you hadn't seen in yourself. And I think we all need to keep our ears open at all parts of our life, because had you not listened, where would you be today?
I'd probably still be working at the YMCA. So to be honest.
So you're a realtor, you're doing your thing, and then you kind of moved into a more of a manager, leader type role within that company. So what prompted that?
I've always been a leader in everything that I've done. I was in Boy Scouts, and at any level in school, I was always looked to as a leader. I always wanted to be a leader. And again, the people that I was working for in that organization, they saw the leadership qualities. I was serving in some leadership roles already, not necessarily running in the organization, but at the agent level. And they saw that in me and identified that in me. And it didn't work out at that place I was located at. I actually moved to another location in Houston and took on a leadership role. I just wanted to do something more, and I felt like I kind of maxed out my potential as an agent. I was an individual agent. I didn't have a team, and I just wanted to do more because I'm also a person that likes to impact people, and I saw the need to impact people in the real estate industry that just weren't getting it. And so for me, it was a mission. We all have a calling. I believe our businesses are callings, and that was my calling that I had, is to go out and be a leader to agents and help them be successful in their businesses.
So what I just heard there was your why changed. When you first got your real estate license, your why is I want to go out here and make money and build my business. But as you went through that, your why changed to I want to impact other agents. And I think that speaks volumes on the leadership level, that your why changed, right? A lot of times people's whys don't change. It's hard to move if your why doesn't change.
Yeah, I'm really big on dating the why. Date the why, because it's going to be a different season. I got kids. I know you've got kids, and my why is going to be very different even next year as my daughter goes off to college, and then it's going to change again when my son goes off to college in 3 years.
Yep.
And you can't progress unless you change it.
I love that attitude. So we're gonna go back here and talk about your progression through that. You're managing people and you're in a leadership type role, and then you took that big step. You took that big step to go 100% out on your own in this coaching venture. Tell me your mindset here. You kind of had it good, man. Like you were comfortable. You had this gig going on, well respected in the real estate business. You're doing your thing. What made you decide, you know what, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to go jump off this cliff on my own, and I'm going to go in this direction of coaching? Tell me where your mind was and what you're thinking when you did that.
Oh, well, there's a lot to unpack between that decision and going out on my own, and when I went to leadership. When I went into leadership, I initially went in to recruit, and I was very good at it. In fact, one year I recruited 104 people to a brokerage office, and I got very skilled in it. And it was also when I was introduced to coaching. And it was for this organization. I was one of the first in the greater Houston area to step into this role. And, and I'd moved a couple times in there as well, because these offices were independently owned and operated. And I moved between some offices. So I was in Houston, and then it was in the Woodlands, and then, came back to Kingwood. And a lot happened during those times of growth that I realized, I was shackled in some way. I couldn't go to my fullest potential. And, I think part of it was just the way the position and the roles were set up. It really strung me as, being able to manage, in one case, over 400 agents, and then also expected to be in these other roles of coaching and recruiting. And, the master of the jack of all trades is the master of none, right? And it got to a point where I really needed, as a person, to figure out, what do I enjoy?
Yep.
And what I really enjoyed was the coaching aspect. And I've been coaching, now I've coached over 13,000 hours since 2010. And I really enjoyed having those one-on-one conversations with individuals and seeing the change and the impact of sometimes just the simplest things, just moving the needle slightly. And so I got to a point where I realized, in order to do that, I'm going to have to leave behind everything that I've done and known.
Yeah.
And so in 2017, I made that decision. It was a tough decision. There's a lot of people that were upset about it. There's a lot of people that didn't understand, because I was doing well financially. I was doing well. I was taken care of. I was taking care of my people, and it was a decision I had to make for myself. And what I've realized in doing that is when you want to do something big and exciting, people aren't going to understand it. And that's okay. At first, it wasn't okay. I took it very personal. Um, and I'd be lying to say there's times today that I sometimes take it personal.
Yeah.
But initially at the beginning, because of some of the things that were said.
Yep.
And very hurtful things that came from people that I respected at a very high level. Now, there's also great people I left behind. Lots of great, those far outnumbered the few. And so, it was one of those things that it was like it was time, but I had to do it for me, not anybody else. I had to do it for my family, not anybody else.
We talked about it on my call with you. That's hard because there are those people that their idea of support is to tear you down, right? They think they're doing you a favor by telling you can't do it, or they're angry with you and, trying to change. Either they try to squash your dreams because their dreams don't match those, right? And I know I found, and I think you can talk to this, is you find really who's in your corner when you make a move like that, who truly was there and in your corner. And sometimes it's eye-opening, right? I mean, there's some people that weren't in your corner that opened that was just, you couldn't believe it, right? I mean, that's a tough part of that. So you left behind this safety net. That's what you did, right? I mean, you had this nice parachute attached to your back. You had this safety net below you. You jumped off a cliff, no parachute, no safety net, no harness. You jumped off with just a big dream. Obviously, you had experience, so that's kind of a safety net, but you still jumped off that cliff. Talk to me about the conversations at your house with your wife. Talk about the conversations in your own head at night, the things that kept you awake.
Yeah. I think initially my wife, first of all, she's 100% supportive of any decision I make. She knows that I'm not going to make a decision that's going to harm us. Might cause us some pain, but it's not going to harm us. And so she knows I'm an entrepreneur by heart. Nobody can rein me in. And so, it's one of those things that, we had that conversation and it took us back to 2004 when I started in real estate and jumped off a cliff. I was, it's like, if I could do it then, I've got all this experience now and support system that I have created. I've got all these great connections. I could do this again. And so my wife said, if that's what you want to do it. One of the benefits I had was I already had coaching clients, and that made the decision to move with me. So it wasn't that I went to zero right away. Now that came very quickly because I didn't have the attachment to that organization anymore. So I had to go, I'm out in a whole brand new world, bigger fishbowl though. But I didn't have the audience that I had before, because once I closed that door, there's zero support that came from that organization other than the clients that I had and friends of still today. So, my wife said, go do it. Like, just don't fail. And I'm like, there's no option. There is no option to this. It's gonna work. And so, a big part of it is faith. And when you have that passion and the faith behind it, I knew God was going to take care of me. And so that's what happened. 2017, packed my stuff up at the organizational office. People were like, where are you moving to? I'm like, I'm gone. This is it. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And I said, I have to do this for me. And so I left. Temporarily hung my license with another organization just because I wasn't quite sure yet if I was going to still do some production on the side. But then a year later after that, I even placed that inactive and just went 100% in on Red Hawk coaching.
So two big key takeaways there is you went all in, right? You went all in. You didn't have that backup plan in place.
No plan B, no plan C.
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges. And you did it with faith, and you talk about faith in God, but you also had faith in yourself. And I think that's one area that I see a lot of people struggle with is, they don't truly believe they can do it. You have got to believe in you, because there are times, even when your wife is as supportive as she is, you're the only one believing in your crazy ideas because you're afraid to even tell anybody about your crazy ideas. So I love that. That let's just do this right now. Talk to me about, you had, for years you had an office to work out of. You got up, you got dressed, you went to work every day, right? You had a place to be, you had hours to put in. You pack all that up and you go home, which is a very different mindset to set up an office at your house and to get up, get dressed, go to work every day. Talk me through that.
Yeah. So I was home before COVID was cool. I was using Zoom before COVID, COVID made it awesome. So I moved home. We had a spare bedroom. We're living in Green Tree at that time. And I made that my office. So I got myself a stand-up desk and microphone. And I was like, that's all I need to go to get started. And I just need to now start setting appointments. It is a different mindset though. You have to be prepared for that. And I think, especially with the direction the real estate industry is going, you're seeing less and less people going into offices. You see these big monster offices that it's ghost town now. It's just a very different time. And, at that time, it was different for me. I was used to being around people coming in, the energy that provided. And there's some really good things about that, I even miss at times. And so you got to be more purposeful to fill those buckets up when you're working at home. So, your network there changes up a little bit. You're setting lunch appointments and you're getting out of the house. You're doing things to fill the buckets. But it was different. You're talking into a camera. You have one other person on the other side of it. At that time I was doing Zoom. Now I do all of them by phone. It's easier. But at that time I was doing Zoom. And so we'd have these conversations just like we're having right now. And it was all in a little 10 by 10 area. I decorated it up. I put stuff on the wall to, for the people that were watching. And I had stuff on the wall that was on the other side of the camera that was for me, to remind me that, I am a great coach. I'm doing great things. My vision board was over there. And so it kept me focused on what I needed to do. Because it's really easy when you're at home. Oh, well, I got to do some laundry, or, I saw a bush up front need to be trimmed. You find a million different things to do other than work. And so you had to get very disciplined with the way that you used your time.
Well, you got to get intentional, right? You talk about setting those lunch appointments. You were intentionally doing that so you could fill that void of the people side, the one-on-one interaction. And I think working from home is a great challenge for a lot of people. They don't think it is. They think it's amazing, right? Until they realize that, like you said, that load of laundry or getting dinner in the crock pot and I know you love to cook. You could get distracted by throwing some brisket on your grill. We all know you're a big grill guy, and you could eat up 2 hours of your day that wasn't productive. Right. And then that gets mentally, that's in your head. I didn't do enough today and I didn't fulfill what I'm supposed to do. So I think that piece of it, watching your growth through that, a lot of people don't understand how hard that is to go from being in an office every day in an office environment around people that keep you focused on one level. Now, obviously too many people in an office can unfocus you too, but then to go home and then find that being intentional, what that really looks like is difficult.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, it's very quiet. Like in my house right now, kids are at school. My wife does work from home. She's got a flex schedule, but she's not home today. So there's no sound in the house even. It's quiet. So you got to fill those voids. Put on some music, or something that doesn't necessarily distract you, but just keeps you focused and intentional. Following your calendar. That's the biggest thing, is having that schedule and following it. And when the days that I do that, and I do it very well, at the end of the day, whether I got a new client or not, whether I got everything accomplished or not, I feel like I'm accomplished, and I can go out of the office, shut the door, not go back in it, leave the work alone. And that's the other thing. If you work from home, don't work from your couch, don't work from your dining room table. You have to have a committed space to do your work, and then you have to leave it there. And realtors are the worst, right? They'll work all hours of the night. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you missing your kids' games? Like, and these are all choices. And it's because they're not following a schedule, and they're allowing things like cooking the brisket or, doing the laundry. They're allowing those things to fill the day when they should have been, lead generating or meeting with clients.
I think you touched on something huge. You got to have a dedicated space to work, and then you've got to force yourself to fill your calendar. If your calendar says work on marketing for 8 hours, it isn't going to work. That's not filling your calendar. That's a weird time blocking that doesn't work. I've noticed in some of our calls, you have very specific times that you are available, right? And this is my time. Hey, I got this, and this, because you're filling up your schedule. Therefore, you can't get sidetracked. When the accountability that you're putting into place is the person on the other side of that call is keeping you accountable, right?
Yep.
And I think that's where a lot of people struggle with that piece of it. Making sure that you're filling you. So you've done a great job. When you talk about 13,000 hours of coaching, you've filled your schedule hard, but that also holds you accountable. So as you've progressed over, your coaching, you jumped off the cliff, you got it started, and obviously you've had success. Talk to me about those either periods of your business where you felt like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not growing at the same rate, or it's not what I wanted it to be. Talk to me about that and how you work through that and mentally to get on the other side.
Yeah, it's one, having a coach. As a coach, I have a coach. I think that's really important. Having a supportive spouse, somebody that's willing to listen to you. And let me say something here. I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes I'll talk more about my business than our lives together. And so there's got to be some balance there. But having that spouse that is supportive, and she is my rock, because it's not all easy. I'll have random conversations with people, like people from the past where I worked pop in and say some really mean things, and it's like I haven't even talked to you in 5 years, and just they felt like they had to say something. I've had times where there's one day that I lost 5 coaching clients. It was five coaching clients within about 3 hours. And they just called and they said, really appreciate, we've been coaching for 2 years, 3 years together, ready to take the next step. But it all happened on the same day.
But it rains and pours, right?
It was all for different reasons. None of them were bad. It's just, the alignment, the stars and the sun, the moon were all in alignment that day. And so, you get into those situations where you maybe doubt yourself a little bit. You're like, okay, what had happened? What could I have done? Why hadn't I backfilled that? All those conversations, that self-talk that could be negative. And it's good to have, 2 to 3 people in your life where you can turn to them and have those type of conversations. And that's with any business owner. I encourage you to find 2 or 3 people, and it may or may not be your spouse. I chose to have my spouse, and she's okay with that. But you don't want to go spew it to the world. I see people get on social media and complain about how bad things are, and they don't realize they're putting the nail in the coffin. Because we'll take real estate. It's any small business, but we'll take real estate. An agent has a bad day. They put it all out there. Their whole sphere of influence is probably following them on social media, whether they're engaging with them or not. And they see that, and maybe they're thinking about buying a home, or they're thinking about listing their home. They are not going to choose you. They are not going to choose you because they don't want that baggage to come along when they're dealing with the largest asset in their life and they want it to go perfect.
Yep.
And so during those times, I can go out there and say, hey, these are all the bad things that are happening. Today I lost 5 clients. I need to go to the people that I had confidence in, those people that could share with me and build me back up and say, hey, this is what's happening. And they've got to be for you. They cannot be against you. It'd be easy for my.
And I'm going to stop you there, because I think this may be the biggest nugget that comes out of this. I think as any entrepreneur, whether you're a realtor, because you're an entrepreneur, whether you're running any business, you are an island. You have to create those people that are they're the ships that come take you off that island from time to time. And it can't be everybody on social media. It's those tried and true trusted people that are honest with you, but also that hold you accountable, but also support you and are there because you're going to have a day where you lose 5 clients. You're going to have a day where everything that could go wrong went wrong. And if you internalize that and you don't have somebody to talk to, you're not going to make it very long in any business. So that's big nugget right there. Big nugget.
It's huge. And I think that, and I didn't say that, they have to be honest with you. And sometimes that honesty burns, but you know where it's coming from. And so, they're just trying to help you. And we've got to be able to, we got to be able to decipher that, because sometimes we think, oh, they're just hating on us, so they don't want us to succeed, or they're going to burn us. They want to burn us down. And sometimes there are people out there that truly, honestly care about you. That circle is going to be very small.
Very. You can put it in the palm of your hand, right? I mean, yep. Well, I would say between you and I share very large networks. I mean, you have thousands and thousands of people, but that network you're talking about fits right here. Fits right here. Even though hundreds and maybe thousands and thousands of people, I'm the same way. That fits right here because those people have your best interest in mind.
Yeah, I hate Facebook calls it friends. Friend somebody. I'm like, all right, yeah, I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation. Have my feelings on that, but it's 3 people in my life.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
I wouldn't go to anybody else with something like that.
I think for everybody listening to this, you need to take that. I preach it all the time. You got to have that core group of people that have your back, that you can call at any time, that are going to be honest with you and support you, because you can't do this on your own. I don't think you can do life on your own. I mean, and sometimes that's your spouse. It may not always be your spouse. And that's okay, depending on what your spouse does. And if their level of stress is super high, it may not be that person. And that's okay, as long as there's a mutual understanding there, but you got to have those people. And they don't necessarily need to be in your industry. They don't need it. Jeremy, I guarantee you, your 3 are not coaches. I'm pretty sure they're not real estate coaches or business coaches, right? They don't have to know what you do. And sometimes it's better that they don't. It's that they can take an objective look from 35,000 feet. And that's what you've mastered there, or you wouldn't be here today. You wouldn't have made it. You wouldn't have made it.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Talking about people and like you said, thousands and thousands of hours of coaching. What is it, that one thing, as you talk to agents and business owners across the country, they're in different markets, they're in different levels of their life. They come from all walks of life, right? Some have degrees, some don't. Some have sales backgrounds, some don't. Some have corporate backgrounds, some don't. What's that one thing that you see consistently that group needs to work on? It seems to always be glaring in the majority of the people that you're coaching. When you're diving into their coaching and you're getting them started and you're starting to learn about them, it just becomes that red flag or that beacon that you're like, yep, here we go. We need to work on this. There's that one thing that we all need to work on, and maybe we've not come to terms with it?
Yeah, I think, you always hear, the other organization I could have easily gone and coached, they had another coaching organization built within it that I could have easily gone to and been in, but it wasn't the style of coaching that I think was needed. Because if you go to most coaching organizations, especially in real estate, you're going to hear lead generation, number 1, lead generation. And that's great, but I think it's putting the cart before the horse. And where I see most people struggle is schedule. If they could schedule out their day, and this is, I use an acronym. This was from a former coach, so I can't take credit for it. I wish I could, but the acronym of life. And so, scheduling things, L stands for love. So putting your relationships on the calendar, when's your kid's game? When is date night? All those things. When am I going to hang out with friends at the lake? Those things are going to go on first. Improvement. So what are you doing every day, 15 to 30 minutes to improve yourself? It could be watching a video on YouTube. It could be reading a book. It could be studying something that you'd like to do one day, but you're stretching the way that you think. And then F stands for fitness and nutrition. This is the one I battle with the most. Making sure that I'm eating at the right times, not skipping meals, making sure I'm getting to the gym, getting my exercise in. That goes next. And then your business goes on there. Because if you don't have relationships, if you're not improving yourself, if you're not working on your health, right? Health is wealth. we can work a lot longer in our lives and have longevity in our businesses if our health is taken care of. And then it's business.
And I think most people have those reversed. When you
100%.
when you see people struggling and you see people burning out and you see people not growing, they've got them reversed. They put business first, and it then second is a long distance down here, right? Yeah, I mean, I've never heard that, but I love that acronym because, I think as I look at people, myself included, we all struggle with that whole scheduling, organization, time management piece. I think it is the big elephant in the room, and we don't talk about it enough. So I wondered if that's where you were going to go as I was putting my questions together to interview you. I'm like, I wonder if he's going to have the same thought process I do here.
Yeah, everybody else will say lead generation. That just it burns me every time I hear it. And there's a lot of these coaching organizations, and they're not overly bad. They have good intentions. It's just that a lot of them will coach solely to the business. I take the approach of it's life and business. You can't have one without the other. And if you're working too many hours, your life is suffering. Your relationships are suffering. If you spend too much time over here with family, you're having all this fun and traveling, and you're wondering why your business, well, it's because you're too far over here. There's no such thing as balance either, by the way. There's counterbalance. There's going to be times where you might be digging into your business. But you need to make sure you don't stay there. There might be times you're digging into life, but you can't stay there. You've got to be able to move back and forth. And that's where I see when I'm coaching people, there's a lot of things going on in life that are impacting their business. They're great business people, but it's the things happening in life that's impacting their business.
I say it all the time. They two go hand in hand. You can't have a great business unless the rest of your life's in order, and vice versa, right? I mean, you've got it. They go hand in hand. I see it all the time. So, leave us with some knowledge here, Jeremy. Talk to me about, because I love what you just made a comment here that you coach, but you're a life coach that does business as well. I think that's huge, right? And I think for everybody watching here, business coaching, I think, is a dirty word to me, because if your life's not in order, it doesn't work. So if you're out here looking for a coach, you need to talk to Jeremy, number one, because the life piece of coaching, it's got to be real. It's got to be honest, and it's got to be on point. And it's the one thing everybody struggles with, but very few coaching programs address the life side of your world. But Jeremy, leave us with some nugget here. Like, I've been watching this. I'm hearing your story. You've got me excited. You left a corporate world to dive into this real estate thing. And then you wanted your why changed, and you grew, and you're out here doing these things. So I'm sitting over here on the other side, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm motivated. I can do this. Give me that piece of nugget that's going to get me to jump. Okay. You jumped off a cliff without a very good parachute. Give me that nugget that's going to go with that.
You've got to get into action. You need to put a plan together, and then you need to, instead of sitting around thinking about your plan, and that's where I see a lot of people make the mistake. They sit around and think about it, they tweak it, and they do all these other things, but until you actually go out and execute, you've got to execute the plan. And the longer you wait, the more likely that dream is to die, to be quite honest. And I see it happen all the time. And, especially in the real estate industry, it's, somebody will come in, and, this typically with that new agent, they'll come in and they're excited. They got through their classes. They think they know everything about real estate. They know nothing yet. And they start down that path, and they're planning, and they're like, I gotta go to another training, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. All those are important, yet they don't execute on the key things that are going to move them to being a successful business owner, which is the lead generation. It is, going out and writing offers and getting contracts and closing contracts. And so, there is a reality to the business that must happen if you want your bank account to grow. And it's action. And so I would encourage people that are listening today, everything that's happened in my life, every step that I've taken, I had a plan. I didn't wait. I took action immediately. I could have waited months I could have been like, oh, I'm going to plan out my coaching program, what this is going to look like, and, silo all these different things and, take 2 years to plan it. I made the decision, and less than a month later, I took action. Anything I've done.
Your plan wasn't perfect either, was it?
No, gosh, it was far from perfect. You go and you start things, starting one right now with you and building a real estate network. There's been some little bumps already, and that it's okay. I would have even known those bumps existed if I didn't take action. Right? We wouldn't even be considering or talking about it. So I think for the business owner today that's hearing this, whether you're in real estate, it doesn't matter what small business, make the plan. Don't spend a lot of time on it. I coach a one-page business plan. It's not rocket science. Go out and execute it. Like, don't wait. Say, I'm going to start next week. No, start today. What is the one thing you could do today to move you closer to your goal?
That's huge. And I gosh, the for those of you watching, really taking the time to pull the nuggets out of this call, because there's so much here. And even myself, I'm guilty. I'm going to go ahead and guilty. Like, I have these great ideas, and sometimes I don't get them into play fast enough, or I overthink them. Like, sometimes we overthink that idea, we overthink that plan, or we let other people talk us out of it. Right? Oh, no. Make your plan, get it down, and then execute. I think that's huge. And I know for a fact, if more people would just do that piece, is it going to be 100% when you start execution? No, you're going to fail. You're going to run into the door, you're going to stub your toe, all that, but your execution then leads to the tweaking of the plan to get even further along. But you got to put it into play. Action. That's huge.
I'd rather have a stub toe than a broken dream.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Jeremy, it's been a pleasure to watch you grow, right? And I love, as an entrepreneur, watching people jump off those cliffs and grow and find themselves and find your why and find you in your business. And I think you've done that in a way that we can all watch and admire and get excited about. But I also know this, you're just scratching the surface. That's what I love about you. Even though you've been doing this real estate thing since 2004, right? Get your hands around how long that is. And he's still tweaking. He's still growing. His why keeps changing. And I want everybody on here to think about that. Am I just sitting still doing nothing? Because when I talk to Jeremy and we have these brainstorm sessions, his ideas are way out here. He isn't slowing down. If anything, he's speeding up. And I think that's another key takeaway as you watch Jeremy. Anything else you want to leave us with, my friend?
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time and I've said things today that I haven't said to others. And so I hope that, giving that sneak peek, kind of behind the curtain, we all like to put that curtain up, and we're all guilty of that. But, being able to take some of those things maybe that I shared with you, and if that helps move you today, man, that means the world to me. I feel like I win. And, if people want to do business with me, that's great. I'd love the opportunity to talk to you about coaching. Reach out to me. It's redhawkcoaching.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you. You can book an appointment on the website. Or, I've started the Red Hawk Partner Network powered by JLA Realty. And we're growing really fast. 7 partners, may have an 8th one today, and maybe 2 more by the end of the week. And this thing's really growing. And it's because I think people are excited about the opportunity. And I am thoroughly excited about the opportunity to be able to serve. So, John, thank you for pulling the curtain back today.
Yeah, that's what we have to do sometimes. And it helps us all grow, right? You grow, I grow, everybody grows. So keep being you. I think the key to your business is you, right? And it's very authentic. So keep being authentic, and excited to see where this goes next.
All right. Well, thanks again, John, for flipping the script today. And until next time, onward and upward.
Good stuff, brother.
Yeah, it was good.